All right, guys, hang on a second. Making sure everything is up. I can see. Go back here. Awesome. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. I can see myself. Yay. All right. Hey, just wanted to thank you for joining these 5 Minute Fridays. They truly mean a lot to me. Um, for everybody that is joining for the first time, I'm definitely getting more and more people interested in real estate, mortgage notes, and things like that, passive income. And so the goal is every Friday at noon, 5 minute ish. They seem like they've been more than 5 minutes. Um, to spend a little bit of time just kind of going over various topics and things like that to hopefully get you excited about passive income, more specifically for me, private note investing. Um, that way, you can add this to your retirement plan, passive income. You can replace your income with this. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and talk about it. I talked about last week. Oh, hang on a second. Let me get my microphone here. I'll put that on my shirt just to make sure it comes in a little bit better. Last week I talked about partial notes. I had a lot of questions regarding partial notes, not really understanding it. So I thought a lot of the questions came about note yield versus note rate. They didn't really, a lot of people didn't understand that. So I figured I'd go ahead and just touch a little bit more about that on that topic. So I am going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint, and let's see if this comes up here. Let's see here. Yep. All right. So everything is showing. And so, like I was talking about last week, I discussed partial note investing. With mortgage note investing, you can buy the entire payment stream, the entire note, or you can just buy a partial. And that's the beautiful things about partials. You can have a couple $1,000s invested. That's if the person looking to sell the note needs a couple $1,000s. You can get in relatively low versus the high monthly infusion that you need in order to buy the note. So, and what I'll do is I'll actually just go over it a little bit so that way you can just kind of understand that a little bit more. So today's topic is partial note yield versus note rate, and I like to start these off with saying that I am not a financial planner nor a CPA. This video is for educational purposes only. I'm only showing you what I'm doing in my business. Your mileage may vary. That's why you need to consult a qualified professional, either a CPA, financial planner, or a lawyer. Any information that you get from me or anybody else that's promoting financial information, please always consult with a financial planner, a CPA, or even an attorney. That way, they can make sure that what you're doing is sound for your particular circumstance. So I'm just going to go ahead and start back off with what is a partial. You buy a portion of the payment stream. You don't own the full note. And I've got an example here. I'm just going to touch on what I did last week, but I drew out like a little bit of an illustration. You don't own the full note, just some of the income. It's like I was initially saying, it's great for smaller budgets, 10 to 20,000. I mean, I've purchased partials for as low as $5,000. Because that's all they needed. They only needed a couple, $5,000 just for a. I had one that just needed money for an AC. They had a note. They didn't know that they could sell the note, and they just needed $5,000 to replace an AC unit. It was like the air conditioner, and so that's all he needed. So that's what I was able to work out a deal. We sold a portion of those payments, and I was into it for $5,000, and my yield was pretty good. It was in double digits. So why use a partial? You buy the rights to receive a portion of future payments. You're not buying the full note, just part of the payment stream. And after the term ends, the remaining payments go back to the original seller. So here's an example. So let's imagine a pizza. So this entire pizza, in this particular case, I'm going to divide this up, but in this particular case, you could buy this full pizza is worth $50,000 and 180 payments. So what you can do is you can sell off these payment streams. So what you could do is you can divide this up into, in this particular case, I just divided it in 30 because 180, divide that by 60. The 60 payment, or 30, comes out to 6 equal payments, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30 slices. So imagine each one of these pieces of a pizza, 30 individual slices, right? And so individual streams, those are 30 individual payment streams coming in. With my last example of, I think it was like 429 a month. So what you could do is you could sell those off, right? And so in this particular case, the example that I was showing you is we could buy the next 60 payments for $18,000. So these payments, you structure this note, and then you're able to buy the next 60 payments for $18,000. And I think if I remember correctly, the value of that was like 21,000 or 22,000 or something like that. So you're buying that $22,000 note for 60 payments for $18,000. So that's going to equate to about a 14.33% return on your money. And so the really cool thing about this is, after the 60th payment comes in right here, so you have 30, 60. This is starting the 90 day, 90, 120, 150, and then 180. But after the 61st payment, it reverts back to the seller. So the seller can keep the next 30 payments, or they may go, hey, I have another, I have something else that needs to come up. My daughter needs, she's, I don't know, $8,000 short and payment tuition. I've got this note sitting here, so I can sell off whatever those payments equate to for $8,000. So let's just say that $8,000 equates to the next 30 payments. So they can sell off this next 30 payments of stream, right? And then, if you buy that at a certain discount, maybe you'll get 12 to 14% return on your money again. And then after the 30th payment, on like the 120th payment, it reverts back to the seller, and the seller can keep the remainder. Or what's happened to me in the past is I bought like a few partials. I bought a couple of like a couple months worth. When I say a couple, like 60 payments worth of payment stream, and then it reverted back to the seller, and then the seller got a couple payments, and they just said, hey, I'm not really into this. I just want to go ahead and sell it, and then I wound up buying the entire note from them. So partials are very, very powerful, and when you learn these, you don't have to have a lot of money in order to get started in these. And these returns are, I mean, they could really be double digits for you, and your investment to value. It'll keep you safe with your investment to value. It's still low, and then the seller still has a stake in it because, like, for example, these 60 payments, right? I bought, for example, if this was a note that I bought these 60 payments, and if something happened where, say, 30 payments have been made, and say the 35th payment comes in, and the borrower stops making payments, well, we can go ahead and foreclose because we have the full right on this note. We have the full allonge and the full assignment of mortgage. So we can go ahead and foreclose on this note. But typically what I like to do is I work with the seller of the note in my contracts, I have it state where they'd either buy that back minus the amount of payments, so that way they make me whole, or if they want to foreclose, then we just work in conjunction to foreclose on the property and take the property back, and then sell it and stuff like that. And that's where proper paperwork comes into play. And I'm kind of going off on a little tangent with this, but these partials are extremely beneficial for you. And if you're looking truly to get into these mortgage notes, and if you don't have much money to buy a full mortgage, for example, like if you were to buy this full mortgage note, you wouldn't offer them like $50,000. And if you're looking for, say, a 14% return on your money, you'd maybe offer them like $30,000 on this note. So I'm telling you, they are extremely, extremely powerful if you know what you're doing. So just to kind of recap on this partial note, so a note has $50,000 unpaid principal balance with 6% interest, 15 years, that's 180 months remaining. Your monthly payment would be $421.93. You buy, like I showed you, you buy the next 60 payments, the next 5 years. You pay $18,000 today to receive $421.93 for the next 60 months. So what that means is, and then after the 61st month, the remaining balance returns back to the seller. So what's your yield? You paid $18,000. You collected $421.93 for the next 60 months. The total you received was $25,315.80. Your gross yield is 14.33%, but your net yield is 11.06% annually. That's where I've got this little note. You always need to read the promissory note, even if I've had the seller tell me that, oh, the borrower's paying servicing, and then you read through the promissory note, they weren't paying the servicing costs. So you have to read the note. You have to take the time to do the due diligence on this, because if you're truly looking at a 14% return on your money, when you're really looking at the net yield, it's only 11%. 11% is not bad, right? But if you are calculating 14 and you want it 14%, you 100% need to account for the servicing costs. So always check that. So, and this is what initially note rate versus yield. So what is the note rate? This is the stated interest on the original loan, which is 6%. This is used to calculate the borrower's payment and doesn't reflect your return if you didn't pay full price. And so what's your yield? Your actual return based on what you paid. In this particular case, it's going to be 14% because you paid $18,000. So yield is a function of cash flow, time, and price, and the Schedule B helps you track that payoff. So hang on a second. Let me bring this over. Wait a minute. Let me see where this is at. I showed this last week, and this is just an amortization schedule. So whenever you buy a partial, you're going to have a Schedule A, a Schedule B, and a Schedule C. Schedule A is the borrower, Schedule B is the investor, and the Schedule C is the remainderment. It's what's owed to the seller. So, and what you, now this is different, like note rate versus yield rate on like the different schedules. Typically, if you just bought at the note rate, you're fine. Essentially, when it becomes the yield rate on the Schedule B, that's really when you're the one who is selling the note, you constructed the note, you had an RMLO constructed the whole 9 yards, and you own this note and say, I approach you for a partial. Well, since you're in control of that note, you can set this up based off the yield rate. And what that does is that just squeezes a little bit more juice out of the end. Because if you look at the note rate, interest rate's only 109 on the payment. Look at the interest rate on 214. So if you look at these two, Schedule B from the note rate versus the yield rate, you're able to squeeze out an additional $3,000, roughly about $3,700, right? But if you buy these partials and if you just only focus on the note rate, you will be fine. You will still make money. You will still buy that note at the yield that you need to buy that. So, I just wanted to throw, I know I talked about that a little bit last week, but I just also wanted to talk a little bit about it again this week. And then once again, the real math, yield versus note rate. Your note rate on the note is 6%. This is original to the borrower. This never changes. The borrower will pay 6% the course of that loan unless they get behind and you do a loan modification, right? If they get behind, if maybe you do a loan modification to say 6, 4, or 5%. So that this rate will never change. The partial buyer's yield, what you're actually buying this for, once again, was at $18,000. Your gross yield was 14.3%, right? So why? You paid less but still got the same monthly income. So some key takeaways: the note rate tells you what the borrower pays, yield tells you what you earn. Always run the numbers before you buy. And then really the benefits of buying on a partial: you can earn passive income without owning the full note. Easy entry for new note investors. Payments are secured by real estate, and you get flexible terms you can negotiate directly. And I think that's all I have. I don't know if there are any questions. Let me look here. If you do, you can drop them in the chat, or what you can do is you can send me an email, larry@ljhinvestments.com, or call me, that's my cell, 513-301-1468, or you can text me there. Or you can go and schedule a 30-minute call with talkwithlarryhoffman.com. Here, let me go over here to this screen so you can see me. You can schedule a call. Let me move this over here. Give me a sec. So you can schedule a call, talkwithlarryhoffman.com. That's a 30-minute, or that's a calendar. That's a link to a Calendly link where you can schedule a